Hello and welcome back to Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Today's show is we have a special guest joining us. Former Arsenal midfielder David Hillier will be giving a bit of information about his time at the club. We'll also look at his thoughts on the current team, what we thought of the summer transfer window business, and looking at the games coming up ahead, both here in the domestic league and in Europe. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is your Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Enjoy the show.
Hello, good evening, lads. Trevor, Dale, and especially David. Great to have you on the show. We have spoken before on other podcasts, but it's really good to have you on. How are you doing?
Yes, very well, thank you. Yeah, not enjoying the international break, I must say.
No, I don't think any of us are.
No, because they put on all these other games that I don't really like watching. So, but won't talk about that. Might get in trouble. But
yeah, what the rugby league in Manchester?
It's difficult enjoying any football at the moment. I did watch Bristol Rovers lose at the weekend, though. That was a bit disappointing. 4-0 against MK Dons. So yeah, that's about the only football match I've watched in the last short period.
Trevor, good to see you. You've seen this man play football many times. I only came to England the year he broke into the academy, so I didn't see you play, unfortunately, David. Trevor, just take yourself off mute. I know it's much better when you are on mute, but
what happened there again? I'm sure you do it on purpose to me, Ferg.
I didn't touch anything.
Yeah, I love it when we have ex-players on because David, you lived my dream. You played 140 odd times for the Arsenal, and you lived my dream 140 odd times over. I'd have given my right arm for a minute on that football field. So yeah, I'm not bad, Ferg. Just like David just said, I'm missing the football so much. International football, yeah, I'll watch it, but it ain't the same as watching the mighty Arsenal, especially when we're top of the league. So looking forward to tonight, mate, and having a good chat.
And Dale, you reached out in the group to say you're available for tonight. How much David would have been? You would have been very young when David was playing because you're a bit younger.
Yeah, I would have done. Yeah, I mean, I'm not called young very often, so I'm amongst a few older people. Me tonight, I quite like this. But I was more impressed with the intro tonight, Ferg. I thought you were talking about me when you said a special guest. I never had one like that before. And then I remember we had David on. So
that's a different type of special, David. Dale. So right, let's get into this. What we've got to probably do is have a bit of chat with you, David, about your time at Arsenal, and then what we'll go and look at the Fulham game, the Prague game, the season so far, and what you thought of the transfer window, just mixed up. So yeah. I suppose if we start with your time at Arsenal, you played training as a schoolboy at Millwall, Charlton, and Arsenal, and you signed as an apprentice. You must have been like cock a hoot at that sort of age to be signing like for a top London club as a schoolboy apprentice.
Yeah, I nearly didn't sign for Arsenal. I was, as you rightly mentioned, I was training at Millwall and Charlton, and I was South London boy from Blackheath, New Cross area, so probably bang in the middle of the two clubs, Millwall and Charlton. Trained at both of them, and for all intensive purposes, my heart was set on Charlton. Though at that time, I was taking a lot of interest in Arsenal because I was training with them. And I was sort of leaning towards being a supporter of the team then. I was due to sign for Charlton. And the guy who was the youth development officer at the time, a man called Eddie Heath, he was kind of my mentor at Charlton at the time. He used to take us all to training, bring us home. Great man, massive man, 6'6", great stature, great presence, but great, really brought all the lads together. He'd set me on a career path. I was going to be Charlton's captain when I was 18, 19. And that was the goal. And then literally age 14, my my birthday, my 14th birthday, 19th of December, Eddie died on the 9th of December before my 14th birthday. And I made a decision that week and just said, no, I'm signing for Arsenal. I had an offer on the table from Arsenal and from Millwall. And I made that decision purely on the death of Eddie. So if he'd have lived, I might have joined Arsenal later, possibly. Who knows? But my heart was probably set on making it as Charlton captain. That was what I'd been sort of aiming for. Local team, my dad's team, my future wife's team, and yeah. So fate had its hand in it there. But yeah, you're right. Apprentice, then pro, yeah, and managed to squeeze in 140 games.
Yeah, 143 games. I've got that. So we'll go into that in a minute. Trevor, you said you'd give your right arm to have that opportunity at 14 years of age. Can you imagine turning up as an apprentice at Highbury?
Mate, do you know what? I was that strange as a kid going to watch the Arsenal. I used to leave home, walk out the door, going to watch a game of the Arsenal. I used to think, shall I take my boots with me just in case? You know what I mean? You know, when you're that young, you just dream about it, do you? You just want it to happen, you know. So, David, you had your apprenticeship, and then you became part of a very successful youth side, right? Captained it to comfortably win the FA Youth Cup in '88, right? But I just want to jump ahead a little bit. When you signed your first pro contract, was it with George Graham? Did George Graham have you in to sign it, mate?
My first pro contract was, yeah. So I actually did Terry Neal for my schoolboys at 14. I've got the picture.
Yeah.
Don Howe at 16. And then first pro so 16-year-old, I signed for Arsenal with Don Howe. And then Don left and George came in. And then my first pro contract, was with George.
Yeah. See, the reason I asked that is because going back, I know he was a great friend of yours. He was a great friend of ours, Kevin. Kevin used to tell us a story about when he signed his first pro contract. And he said that George was a bit of an hard negotiator. How did it go for you, mate? Was it easy or?
I didn't have a say in it. It's a bit like you hear the stories of Brian Clough coming out. I mean, Mark Crossley tells one about he was offered a new contract and he said, how much? He said, don't worry, son, I'll fill it in when you've gone. And it's like kind of one of them. You accept it. You're playing for Arsenal. You know, I was a scally from the street. I was just a working class boy, grafter. You know, I earned a few quid as a teenager doing bits and pieces, and I was, I'd have done all right in life. But the opportunity, as you said, was unbelievable, and you just take it. You don't question it, and it was a standard thing. There wasn't no difference in wages. Everybody was 200 quid a week. First pro contract, that was it, £200 a week. And I remember I got my first pay packet. It was 800 quid because you didn't qualify for tax then, and my mum got the last instalment of housekeeping. So Arsenal used to send 140 quid home a month to top up your £27.50 a week YTS, and she gave me that, and I had 940 quid, and I went to Bethnal Green to, I don't know if you know the Rankins, Robbie and Ricky Rankin, big Arsenal fans, got a little jewellery shop in Bethnal Green, and I bought a Rolex with my first pay packet. Spent the whole lot. And it came out with blood on it and everything. It was a dodgy one.
Come from Bethnal Green Road. What do you expect?
Yeah. So you still couldn't take New Cross out of the boy, but I had sort of landed on my feet with Arsenal, and no say in the contract at all. No say in the contract, just signed it, and then you only got a year. If you was very special, you got 2 years. But it was a year-to-year thing. You was just waiting for that break to get maybe on the bench, and you knew once you got on the bench, it was going to be a 2 or 3 year deal for decent money. But money was never my motivation for playing football, playing for Arsenal. Never.
Dale, what's your thoughts on that? 200 quid a week. Now, if you look like Saka's got to be probably on 350 a week, and not pounds. I'm talking £1,000. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's
isn't
interesting when you say about the money back then. I know it was no motivator, but obviously being the humble professional that you were, David, how do you find the money that they're paid in these day and age? I mean, obviously the money that they're being bounded about, as Fergus just said, they're 300, 400, 500 grand a week. Some of these players, it's mind blowing, don't you think? How it's just blown up.
It's a market. It's a market, and we ain't got no control. Back then, you know, I think the club shop was doing about 20 grand a week when I was an apprentice, because we used to have to bank the money when we did our work experience, and we walked down to the Barclays down at Finsbury Park with a bag with 20 grand in it in cash from the shop. Two of us, like me and one of the managers, and bank the money. That was so relatively speaking, the turnover of the club now compared to what the players get, it's just the market. I don't feel like I was hard done by. I did all right. I've had a great life. I've not had to worry. I've not gone to a cash point in 40 years and worried about it ejecting my card. And I owe that to football. I owe that to the fans, and I also owe it to my hard work when I was a young kid, because I didn't know it was going to pay off. We just played 4 games a week for 4 different teams, and did our best. I actually got a message from someone the other day saying, "Do you know the score of this game?" And it was a London, a Southeast England versus another part of England game, regional game for the Lillishall trials, the first year at Lillishall. And I didn't even know. This is how much interest I took in it. Mark Ramprakash was playing against me, and I saw that name, and I thought, he's a top cricketer now, or he's gone through his old. He was a great footballer when he was like sort of 13, 14. And you don't acknowledge all that. It's just football. You're just playing against each other in the game you love. You don't think about a career. You don't. Now it's different. I think they're focusing on careers. They've got agents who are maximising them, because some of them only have a few years at the top. But yeah, it was, like I said, money never became an issue. Probably until I had a family. Went Portsmouth. That's the only time I actually thought about, I am going to stand my ground here and get a few quid in the bank. Yeah,
it's different when
25, you're on the way down. That's simple.
But also it's not only on the way down. You've got responsibilities. You've got a wife. You've got kids, and so on.
Yeah.
So I think that probably kicks in as well. Listen, you won the FAU Cup in 1988, defeating Doncaster Rovers 6-1 over 2 legs. But in the first leg, your really good friend. It was a 5-0 victory at Highbury. Your really good friend, and our friend of us and our friend of the show, Kevin Campbell, got a hat trick. Talk to us about Kevin, because you and Kevin were always really good friends, and we spoke briefly before the show started about your relationship with Kevin.
We first encountered each other, I think it was about age, I want to say 12, in what they used to have in London, was a thing called the Black Cup, and it was like South London against the like Kent. I was over more Kent side, Southeast London, so we played like the Peckham areas, and 2 different leagues, 2 different school areas came against each other. I was centre back, he was centre forward, and yeah, we beat them. They was a team. He played for a team called Four Fields, and they was all giants. They was a team of absolute giants, and Kev was awesome. And we then obviously 2 years later we started training at Arsenal. He trained at Arsenal from when I was about 12 and a half, 13. So I'd done a year before I signed, and so I got to know Kev really well. My dad loved Kev. My dad protected Kev. There was a lot of racism about back then. And my dad was very much an advocate of, if you say anything about any black player on my team, I am going to smash your face in. But and I've seen him nut a few people on the line who used to be abusive. And he used to protect Kev like it was his son. So we formed a really tight bond then. And, it's a long time. And I know you see the Paul Davises talk about Kev being, part of the club and all of this and all that, and how they knew him. I knew him from 12, not from 18. They knew him as a man. I knew him as a young boy, and he had the same morals as a kid. He was the best, well-balanced person you could ever met as a 12-year-old. Hard-working, loved his mum, absolutely adored his mum and his family. We had a different sort of bond, a different bond.
Do you know what? Right, it's you should say that, David. In that, I was talking, and I asked you the question earlier, so I'm not going to ask you it again, but I was talking to Kevin once about him signing his first contract and lining up with what you said there. I can remember him like it was yesterday saying to me, when I signed my first contract, I wanted to look after my family. I wanted to look after my mum, you know. So that just about ties up with it, doesn't it? You know, nicely. I'm going to step in with a question now, right? You made your debut. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I've only been just looking at records and they can be wrong. September 1990, you make your first team debut, David. Can you remember it? How did you feel? Can you remember?
I think it was the Coca-Cola Cup, if I'm not mistaken, Chester.
I'm not sure.
I got called in last minute. Was playing at we wasn't playing at their ground. We was playing at a different ground because of the weather. Got called in on the day before. Injury in the midfield. I was the next one up. I know Ricey and to be fair, Theo, God rest his soul, had really pushed for me to get in that side. I'd been working with the first team. Every game, every day before a game, we did shadow play, and we played against, like, you'd have the first team, and then I would be the midfield of the opposition, just trying to close them down and just grafting. Nothing to do with the game that was coming the next day. I was just the opposition, and I think, you know, I used to work really hard at that. I used to think, you know, if you're being asked to be a bit of a dog's body, just do it good. Be a good dog's body. Work hard. Prove to the gaffer that you can work, and if you get your chance. And I just got the call up literally the day before. The worst thing about it is when you got your first team debut, you had to do a speech and you had to slaughter the manager at some point. And I was shitting myself because you know, it's all right having, if you're in that group, having a bit of banter with a gaffer, but I weren't really in that group, and I had to stand up on a table in the dressing room and do a speech before the game.
Why did it do that? Why did it do the initiations, and why did it do like that particular thing there? I
think it's humbling. I think it's humbling. It's like, you're not special because you're here. You've just got to do the same as what we've all done. We used to do this thing at Christmas as well. So it will be totally not allowed now. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's borderline abuse, but it was close. So we used to have these little, you know, like the little butler sinks. So we'd have 4 of them outside the changing rooms at Colney. 4 of them for cleaning boots, full of muddy water. But they was big ones. All next to each other. And you used to have to strip that. This is at Christmas. You had 2 people that you cleaned boots for. So mine was Charlie Nicholas and Viv Anderson when I was an apprentice. And you had to sing a Christmas carol for your money. So they would give you, Charlie actually gave me my first £50 note I ever had in my life. He gave me the first pink one I ever got. And so he gives me the 50, and then you've got to stand in the muddy water with a little slip on, like a jockstrap, nothing else, and sing a Christmas carol.
And you're how old?
Well, I was 16. It was like
it definitely wouldn't happen.
No, exactly. And I remember Andy Cole when I was 18. Andy Cole cleaned Tony Adams' boots, but it had to be a Christmas carol. And Andy Cole stood there, pulled his shorts down, took his shirt off, and he sung "Little Donkey" from start to finish to Tony Adams. Right, and then they grabbed him by his arms. And then they drag you across the muddy field through all the goal mouths and that. You get dragged around. It was fantastic, mate. Bonded, proper bonded.
Dale, there's some exercises for your boys' football team this Christmas.
As David said, I don't think you could get over half of that these days, could you? Some of the stories you've got from your generation have sadly died out, and it's great to hear those stories. It's I've got a question for you, if I can, David, as well. When you made your debut for the Arsenal, you'd have been what, 21, 22?
I was 20 when I made my debut, because I just got in after I made my debut, got in the first team, got 2 Young Player of the Months before the end of that year, Barclays Young Player of the Month. Then I got my England caps. So I just qualified because I was nearly 21. So that's the only reason I remember it, because I made the under-21 squad.
When you broke into the first team and you made that first team appearance, right? There's some big names in that team, right? You look like Rocky Rocastle, obviously Merce, Steeman. How did you feel when you first stood side by side with these players? Was it like a bit of a surreal moment, or did it just come naturally?
It's fine. You train with them. You worked. George had a philosophy that the youth team did the same as the reserve team, and they did the same as first team. We worked on all the same throw-ins. We worked on all the same corners, same numbers, same movement. Same training drills, very basic, 5 or 6 drills. That's all we did in the week. And we always came together after to do weights and sit-ups and all of that. And I was always pretty good at all the body work exercises and the running and stuff. So I kind of got picked in their team sometimes. When we was in little groups, it'd be like, oh, if we're doing sit-ups, I want Dave in my team, because he'll bang them out. And it was like, so you got, it was just free. There was a lot of players had come through the club and done what we'd done as well. Mickey, Merce, Tony. You had Reece Wilmot in the reserves, a goalkeeper who was just fantastic lad who'd come all the way through, and just loads of players were doing that journey. And we was just, it was like a caravan of footballers just going along the production line, and we was just together. I wasn't nervous at all. I was in awe of some of their abilities and what some of them could do, and I thought, I just can't do that. There's things that they can do that I can't, but I weren't getting paid to do that. I had a specific role, and I was a good listener. I took instruction well, and I was a good listener, and I worked hard. So no nerves at all, really, no nerves whatsoever.
Trevor?
Well, yeah, I mean, so you've made your debut, and you're doing all, from what I remember watching the games, you're doing all right, to be honest. But I looked at a little, I was reading earlier about you, David, and a little quote that was on there. I don't know if you can remember saying it, but he quoted you as saying it as a young player. You said every day was a highlight reel at the Arsenal.
Absolutely.
And that just grabbed me, and I thought, yeah, I bet it was. So you're playing for the Arsenal, and I know it's bound to be a sore point, but I've got to touch on it. You were so unlucky with injuries, David. So unlucky with injuries. How did the '93 season feel, having to watch those finals, mate?
Yeah, I think whilst I was unlucky with injuries, I recovered from them brilliantly, and nothing took me long. You don't know the injuries. Sometimes I was out, didn't play for 2 weeks because I'd torn ankle ligaments, and I was back in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I probably did that 6 or 7 times while I was at Arsenal. I tore my medial ligaments 3 times. Only 1 time was I out more than 2 months from a complete ligament tear.
Really?
So whilst I had I did have a lot of little niggly injuries, I recovered well, and I was a good rehab patient. I would do above and beyond what Gary Lewin said. If it was 200 step ups, I was doing 300. I was working hard to get back in that team. But yeah, the finals did annoy me a little bit because I'd played almost every game up until those semis. And it was frustrating, but because I was part of such a strong squad, and you're still involved in everything they do. If they go away for a weekend to Elf Spa, you're going with them. Gary Lewin's taking you, and you're doing your rehab. And while they're doing the training on the pitch, you're doing laps. So I never missed out on anything. And I always say I got to drink champagne and eat smoked salmon watching them win those trophies. So it weren't all that bad. Do you know what I mean? It weren't all that bad.
Yeah.
You said, sorry, Trev, you mentioned about the squad, and yeah, it was gutting not to be in those finals. But did you feel part of that? It was the achievement of winning, like the FA Cup, the League Cup, Cup Winners' Cup, the First Division, the trophies that you were part of that squad. Do you feel that you've achieved that as well because you're part of that squad and team? Yeah.
I made massive contributions to it, and don't get me wrong, because what I did was what I don't think a lot of the people appreciate is that on a Friday when we was having our team talk, I was given my instructions, and I always had to sacrifice my game. I mean, I was in training. I was a great passer of the ball. I was quick with the ball. The only thing I didn't do is go past people, and I regret not training and practicing that throughout my younger years, going past people. But I was, and I ain't bringing big, massive players into this podcast and names and taking them lightly. But if I played against Ray Wilkins at QPR, and he said to me, "I haven't played against anyone like you before." He said, every time you get the ball, you do what I do. You give it sideways and you keep possession. But every time I've got the ball, you're smashing me. He said, I can't do both of them. And there wasn't many games when I could do that, when I could show the way I could play football and what I could do. So I sacrificed a lot for every game. I'd listen to the manager. I'd stick within 2 yards of Roy Keane or Colin Palmer, whoever I was supposed to be marking out of the game that day. And every time I got the ball, I'd give it to Anders, I'd give it to Merce, I'd give it to Perry, or I'd now and again I would like put a ball over the top for Righty or for Kev. But most of the time I played pretty much within that game plan that had been set out for me. And that's not easy to do. You couldn't ask a player in today's game to do that because their egos wouldn't take it.
Did you get you got medals for all of those being part of the squad as well? Because we were talking before about, is there a minimum qualification? I know 10 games in the Premier League is, but was there?
I played 16 in that. I think I played 16 in that first season when we won it. And all the cup games, I was a major part of the squad. So I'm not. I've got no problems with how many games I've played, but it is just this. The worst thing is when I look at the shirts I've got from the final, because I've still got a shirt with my name on it. They don't mean as much as the 4 shirt I've got from the last game against Coventry when we won the league at home. That shirt, my England shirt, because I actually wore them in them games. So the FA Cup ones I've got and the League Cup ones I've got, and they don't mean as much to me. So that's the only thing. So if you've got 1,500 quid per shirt, you can have them.
Mate, listen though, without your input, we don't reach them finals, quite possibly. You know, I mean, as a young man, you were coming up against the likes of Jan Mulby, Ray Wilkins, and as you just mentioned,
Brian Robson, Vinnie Jones.
You're playing against all them in their prime as a young man, and I remember you held your own, mate. It was an honour to watch you play, and I just want to linger on the 1991 league winning team, right? And you were a massive part of that squad because almost invincible. I think for me, they are the most underrated Arsenal team of all. You hear about teams from Arsenal's history, and people don't name the 91 team up as high as they should. Because for me, mate, so unlucky not to go unbeaten in that season, David.
Well, what the 91 team had, I can see in this squad we've got this year.
Oh, wow.
Right. And what I can see in it is the fact that whoever comes in feels like they're part of the team now. And they're filling the hole fully. They're not just like 70% of the player that's leaving the pitch or 70% of the player that's injured that they're covering.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we had, which this team has finally got after the last 2 seasons of going close, we've tidied up ourselves to believe in ourselves enough that we can play against 14 sides in that league and play the way we want to play. And against 4 teams, we've got to adjust a little bit to get the points off them. And that's what George did. So we would play against the Southamptons, the Evertons. We'd play our game against them when we're in that 91 team. We'd just play our game. It'll be a ball up to Smithy, get it into the wingers, get it back delivered in the box. When we came up against United and Liverpool mainly, sometimes Tottenham, because Tottenham was always being a derby, was always a sort of, well, all right, shitting them, right? Coming up against them was always going to be a different game. George would change the tactic a bit, and in Europe he'd change it because of the technique. And I think the team now are quite comfortable playing their way against 75-80% of the teams in the Premier League now. He'll only change it for the 2 or 3 really important games where, and it looks like so far this season we've ironed out the mistakes against those sides. I don't think we're going to lose against the Leedses and the Bournemouths and, you know, the teams that are not that great, where we've dropped points before. I remember us dropping points at West Ham before Christmas, lost the league by 4 points against City. Last year against Liverpool, it was probably, 10 points, 10 points.
Yeah.
We was a bit off. Liverpool had an exceptional season. But I think if we keep to that, as our mentality was in when we almost were invincibles, we knew that we would win all those games. And that's where the 1-0 to the Arsenal came, didn't it? You know, we knew in our heart of hearts that we just stick at the game, we work at our game plan, enforce it on the opposition. And Jules used to say, if you don't concede, you can't lose. And that was our mantra. And we always had Wrighty and we had Smudger and we had players that could put it away.
Yeah.
You mentioned
Dale?
you mentioned obviously Liverpool were at a quality side back then, and we spoke about the 1991 squad. But you may remember the following season against Liverpool, a certain 4-0 result, your first goal for the Arsenal. Do you remember that goal, and can you remember how it made you feel at the time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I look back at it, and I think Mike Hooper was in goal, so I don't know if that counts now. It is a bit shit.
Was in goal, yeah.
But no, I remember it. Yeah, it was a corner come in, and I think I just ran across the near post into that little Teddy Sheringham area, and it was a corner we worked on. It was a corner we'd actually worked on. Just get across, because the way they used to defend, they'd have 2 at the front post, 1 in front of your front man, and they used to leave a little gap. And George was good at. He'd notice little things and try and exploit them. I think I was up against Mike Marsh that day. He was a tidy player for Liverpool, you know, really lovely lad. Just got to him first. But I think Anders took the shine off of that, didn't he, by scoring from like his long shot, wasn't it? I think he scored from just inside their half. But I remember in that game as well, he did this thing where someone went to tackle him and he stood on the ball and went like this and had a look around like that, and then got off the ball, and Liverpool just wanted to kill him. All their players just wanted to. But he pretended to kick it, put his foot on top, stood up, went like that, and stood back down. And that was Anders. I mean, he was a fantastic lad. He's, you know, always been a bit strange, but nice fella.
Do you still see many of them, David? From that time?
Yeah. I see him. Obviously, I'm still involved with the commentary at Arsenal, so I see him at that. See him at a few. Supporters club events, bits and pieces. I'm doing one with Alan Smith, Charlie Nicholas,
no good asking, mate.
Perry's coming at Christmas. So I'll get to see them all. We'll bump into him in the lounge and stuff.
You mentioned Perry, and in the article that in the Sporting blog, which talks about life after Arsenal and life after football, you said yourself that your relationship off the pitch wasn't always brilliant with Perry, but on the pitch was really productive in what you did. You get on with him well now?
I've got to say, I mean, it's like any work environment, right? You get on with people, you know their qualities, and because George was the boss.
Yeah,
it never boiled to the surface really, but Perry was a prick. Honestly, he was jabbing away with the little one-liners. Always got a comeback. Colchester boy, thought he'd come from Essex. You know, he was just like proper. Yeah, it was a proper pain in my arse at times.
I've got a mate like that, David. His name's Fergus.
We had kind of a little bit of an abrasive relationship. You know, we would take the piss out of each other. Like he'd say you're shit at this, and I'd say you've only got a long throw, mate. And you know, you run like you're doing dressage and stuff like that. And we'd have this sort of backwards and forwards. And because I came from South London, and back then I was very much yes man, no man, like yes blood, bruv, right, and all of that. I was brought up around, you know, in a really multicultural area. So, and he used to say to me, "Oh, do you think you're black?" and stuff like that. And you know, and it was just like it used to wind me up. I think one time I did boil over in training once when he said so. But then I saw him at the airport going to a Masters tournament, and I hadn't seen him for 7 years since I left, and I knew he was going to be on the trip. And I'm standing. I've walked over to the group with him, and I've got 2 suitcases in my hand, and he just said to me, "Hello, Hills, how are you? Are they your suitcases?" And I thought, "You wanker, you wanker, you ain't changed one bit." And then I'll give him a hug. And to be fair, I love him, mate. Groves is.
Yeah.
I love
It's
him.
brilliant. It shows what happens with age and a bit of maturity as well, because we all there's people that I didn't like who I got on really well now with now. Trevor being the exception. We even had one of this was going to be our graphic.
Yeah.
I suppose the last thing.
It's nice to see Trevor with his shirt on tonight, because all I
it is. Mind you, he hasn't got as big of a gut anymore, so the tattoo is all shrunk.
Oh no!
I've lost
packets when you put them under the grill.
Yeah.
You know what? I've lost nearly 4 stone, David, but I've been moisturising, so it's all right.
Oh no! Don't tell me that.
It just says now just says Arse. It doesn't say Arsenal anymore. So you mentioned George Graham, Terry Neal, and listening to you talk about George makes me think very much of Arteta, the way he is doing things. And you said that the team is similar to the 91 team, but there's a manager that you did play for, which is Arsene Wenger, first foreign manager to come into the English Premier League. What was he like to work under? And what was the comment that you said, Dale, about was made? Ian Wright said something.
Yeah, I was just curious as to how the first foreign manager in Wenger was perceived in the dressing room, because you may remember when the media asked Ian Wright, and Ian Wright just said, "Who?" So, I mean, was that the kind of general atmosphere around the club at the time, or were people just kind of like there was a different opinions amongst the players?
Well, I think to put things into perspective, we was in a place where we'd been without a proper manager for a couple of years. We'd had someone called Riot come along, and he couldn't know his arse from his elbow. He just talked about himself. And Stuart had deputised, and we was waiting, for a special manager to come along, another George. Arsene came at the end of the season when he was still working under contract from Grampus 8, I want to say, if I'm correct.
7, I think it was, yeah. Grampus 7. Is it Grampus 7 or 8?
Grampus 8. Stop arguing, Fergus.
Do you know what I mean?
I get one. I said I'd get one thing wrong, didn't I?
and he came. We played Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Cup Winners' Cup, I think, qualifiers or something. And he came into the dressing room. He weren't part of the club, and he addressed us all. And even just that one meeting, listening to his mannerisms, it was a culture shock for a lot of us, because we'd seen 1 or 2 European players come in, and we knew they had these different kind of ways of conducting their business. They seemed a lot more balanced than us. They didn't want to party all the time and have a beer. And like Dennis was already there. We'd had Ziggy Johnson, Paul Ederson, Glenn Helder. We'd had Anders. We'd had a few foreign players, and they all looked after themselves different. But it was the first time that a manager presented himself different, to the stereotypical English or, UK kind of manager, harsh, brash, aggressive, swearing. And he was very, very gentle in his delivery. And I think there was maybe a little bit of intrepidation from everyone thinking, is he really going to get this group going with the way he is, his personality? But certainly when we did start the pre-season, I was only there for a couple of months before I left to Portsmouth. And I do regret I had a year and a half of my contract there. So I could have stayed and I could have just fought and just got my head down. But I got a really great offer from Portsmouth financially. Patrick Vieira had taken me peg in the changing room. Literally at the training ground, I went in one day where I hung my clothes up and Tony Donnelly was putting Patrick's training kit there. I said, "What's going on, Tony?" And he went, "Oh, you're next door now." And Patrick was injured. That's how good he was. He was better than me when he was injured. So I just kind of said, you know what, writing's on the wall. I'm happy to move on. I've had a good few years here. Probably should have got my head down, but didn't. But listen. But yeah, and the couple of training sessions I did totally different with Wenger, all timed. You know, we're going to do 20 minutes at this. And if he didn't get what he wanted out of it, he didn't beat us up and keep us out there for an hour. He just changed it and moved on to something else. We did a lot of agility, a lot of stretching. We did this thing called bounding, which we'd never done before, like what the sprinters do when they do them leaps. And we was doing all the fast footwork stuff, which we'd never done before. This was all completely new to us. But yeah, I mean, the boys embraced it in the next couple of years, and I think he definitely lengthened careers of players at the top level. I'm not saying Baldy, Dicko, Nigel, Tony wouldn't have had any more years at the top, but certainly he actually managed to improve them as players whilst improving their fitness and their strength and everything. So yeah, I think he was a breath of fresh air for the club.
And lastly, before we go on to the season and so on, who's in this photograph? I saw this one.
Yeah, classic, isn't it? That's so obviously the good-looking boy on the right, who's actually about 23 there, but looks about 16. That's me. Then you got Kev, Dave O'Leary. He don't look comfortable with he's got a Simon Cowell look about him, hasn't he, with those tracks and bottoms?
Yeah, very much.
Mickey Thomas at the end, and I still see Mickey quite a lot. He's one of the best blokes you'll ever meet in your life. I mean, they're all great. They're all great. And Craig, I think it's Craig McKernan. Is the other fella. We signed him from. He was Northern lad. He came in he was a fullback, left-sided fullback. Decent player, but he never really got a chance.
Just before Fergus comes, I just want to say there's 3 or 4 people ask questions in the chat, and I have made a note of them. And when we come towards the end of this chat with David, I'll put the questions to him to David.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I thought we'd do. Wait till the end on those ones. So let's look at the season so far. Dale, you haven't been able to get to many games because of holidays and other bits and pieces going on at the minute. It's been a bit of you're not going to get into the Tottenham game.
Don't say it's all about holidays, mate. I've been injured.
I said other stuff as well. I don't want to give all your personal stuff away.
You make it sound like I've been on holiday for 6 months, mate. But no, I haven't been this much this year. I mean, I went to the Forest game, but obviously waiting for surgery. I'm hoping to be back for the Tottenham game. What better game to be back for? It's one of the things we go to football for, right? And that's why I'm glad we've got things such as this podcast and the WhatsApp groups to all stay in touch. But I've still seen every game. In fact, I've probably seen a better view than what I would have seen from my seat in Block 8. But what can I say? Top of the league after 7 games against a very good Liverpool side, against a very good City side, with a very, very good squad, and we don't look affected. So, I mean, yeah, for me personally, it's been a cracking start to the season. A few bits we can go back and say if only would have done that, if only would have done that, but we're still top of the league, right?
Trev, your view so far, how the season's been going?
Yeah, very much like Dale. You know, we're top of the league, only a few games in, playing really well the last 2 or 3 games against the lesser teams. Still a bit gutted that bloke at Liverpool scored probably the only worldie he'll ever score in his life to beat us 1-0. Apart from that, I've got no complaints. I'm over the moon with it and looking forward to getting back to it this weekend against the Fulham side that turned us over last season, which, you know, we've got to turn that round.
David, season so far, and I suppose the season so far comes from what happened in the transfer window. When have you seen a transfer window this good at the Arsenal before?
I don't think I've seen one like this that has so specifically targeted the areas where we needed a bit of addressing, and also they've got the right players. Mostly, I mean, I'm still out on the fence about maybe 1, maybe 2, whether they will just be players we carry along, have good games now and again, but generally just do a job in the team. But I think I think the way the team set up now, like I said to you before, and if we go to like the sort of 1 in, 1 out sort of thing, we have a player leave the pitch. We've got a player that comes on that can not just improve that position, but add to the team, add a different dimension. I'll just quickly take you back to the Athletic game in Europe, and the substitutions made in that game. Now, I said in my commentary, whilst Gyökeres was working his balls off and he was battling and he's backing in and he's elbowing and that's what them two centre-halves wanted from the Athletic Club. They wanted a fight. They wanted a battle. And then Arteta's looking at it, and I'm saying at half-time, get Gyökeres off. Get him off. Change the dynamic a bit. You've got two players that can ask questions. You've got Trossard who'll drop into the hole. The centre-half won't want to go in there. It will mess with his brain. And although he waited, I think, till the 70th minute, when he did it, it was, it just lifted the team to another level, but not just a level in, we've got a quality player coming on. He can actually change the dynamic of what the team are doing. So the way that they're playing, I think as much as I don't think Ødegaard's been brilliant this season, we miss him when he's not there. I think that's maybe a position we haven't got a player to come in for. I wanted Ranieri to really, get that position and grab it by the scruff of the neck. I think he's still. Do
you think he's getting enough minutes?
Possibly not, but you've got to develop. You've got to learn to develop your game outside of first team minutes to be able to get into it. You can't just say, look, I've not had enough game time at the Premier League level. You've got to implement it in. Like I said to you, when I used to go in training and I was the dog's body, I put in 150%. I didn't think I'm just a dog's body. I ain't going to do my best today, and I just feel that he's not come up to Ødegaard's standards to fill his boots quite yet. But all the other positions, I think Kivior, as much as he brought to the team, I think he's done the right thing by getting out of there and getting Hincapie and Mosquera in. I think they're two dedicated players who can come in and they're not just filling a position. They're fighting for a position or taking over a position.
Yeah.
Calafiori or Skelly, don't know, not too sure. I mean, Calafiori is really, I would have said 3 months ago, I'd have said Skelly all day long. But at the moment, I think Calafiori is working 150% to own that place. And that's what you've got to have.
And there's huge competition in that squad, though, isn't there? You can see everyone's fighting, but not fighting, if you know what I mean. But
I just wish Trossard would smile when he does something. He just looks so pissed off. I want him to be happy, but I can understand that he's becoming like a Podolski's kind of player. He's going to have the most goals per minute off the bench. And I think that's Podolski's record, something like that. He's the player.
But I think he's better off the bench. I think Martinelli starting and Trossard coming on is more effective.
Martinelli off the bench seems to have a bit of fire in his belly, like someone's put an extra couple of coals in there.
You've only got to look at the Athletic game to see what Martinelli was like off the bench.
Yeah,
exactly that.
When he come on at the end of the City game and he got the goal, it's like, you've got to have them changes in your side, and that's what's going to take it to the next level. Yeah. Whilst the rest of the team are still super solid. Got to say as well, Raya, I think, he's tidied up a few of his mistake margins. He's not making so many, like when he passes it out or he gives it to someone who's in the shit. I think he's learning. He's learning. So I think, it's all an upward trajectory, and it's looking really positive at the moment.
David, it's interesting you say about Ødegaard actually in his injury, and that's one position we haven't really got. And is it time for Ranieri to step up? Question: do you not think Eze is that player there in the 10? Because Eze's creativity, for me, seems to be one of the only players that can match Ødegaard in that kind of looking for that killer pass and that final ball.
I think Eze is a slightly different player to Ødegaard, whereas Ødegaard is much more about fluid movement across the line. He's always going right across the front of that line, just in and out. Whereas Eze is a little bit more He's got a bit more presence, so he looks a little bit slower on the ball. He's more upright. He's looking around him for that one pass, whereas I think Ødegaard's a little bit more busy. So if you bring Ødegaard off and you put Eze in there, the players around them have to do different things. So for instance, if Ødegaard's playing in my mind and I'm playing with Ødegaard and I'm Saka, I'm looking for the little short passes, the little 1-2s, the little line breakers, little passes around the edge of the box. If I'm Saka playing with Eze, when Eze gets the ball in the midfield, I'm not doing that. I'm bending and running behind. Because I think it's that they got different qualities to their game. Eze is much more, you look at his stats, that a long pass he's more suited to than Ødegaard. Ødegaard will work the ball into an area till he makes a short pass, or he does a little dink chip that he likes to do now and again. But Eze is much more of a get your head up, lean back sort of player. And, I can see Martinelli making that run. I can see Saka coming across the line. Gyökeres running into the channel. He's more likely to provide them passes than Ødegaard. So the players have to know that when they're playing with that player, they've got to change their game a little bit. And I think Martinelli is benefiting from it when he comes on all the time. Because if Eze's in there, Martinelli's just going to drift across the front, bend in and out and make runs.
Trev, it's really interesting hearing the perspective of a player looking at it rather than us like a spectator, somebody who's played the game and understands the game, seeing the difference in the two players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get it. And it's sort of coming from a player, putting it into my head as a fan, he starts putting it all into the right perspective for me. I mean, I honestly think the last 2 or 3 seasons, a lot of the time we struggled in that last third of the field. And I think Eze is going to make the difference. And Gyökeres moving people around as well. But I can't get out of my head, David, what you just said about Skelly and Calafiori, because up until the end of last season, I thought we probably had the best left back in the country for the next 10 years. Lewis Skelly coming through, absolutely superb. And then Calafiori starts this season. And if I had to choose a man of the first 6 games of the season, I'd be picking Calafiori all day long. I think he's been absolutely superb. But talking as a player, David, how is Lewis Skelly feeling now? Is he just thinking, I'm just going to get my head down, I'm going to get plenty of game time, or is he going to be a bit put out,
It's a difficult one, really, because I know that the ethos around the club is to be well balanced, okay, and not to let all of these things piss you off. The manager don't like attitudes. He's weeded out all of them. We've seen them go. We've even players that we didn't think had an attitude that he's released probably had a little bit of an attitude, and he just thought, I don't want them getting under the skin of the others. And so I think Skelly's going to be really balanced about it. But yeah, it will be hurting inside, but he'll be looking and thinking, what can I do to improve it? He was England's number 1, left back. Yeah. But you say we had the Premier League's best left back. We've still got it. It's just a different person.
Yeah.
So it's not all bad, you know what I mean? But I think Calafiori has really worked on, and I can really relate to it in taking the manager's instruction. He looks like he carries it out to the full, 150% committed to his part that he's playing in the team. And I think for me, just at the moment, he doesn't take as many chances and drift off of his role as much as Miles does. When Miles does it and it comes off, it looks brilliant. When he gets that ball in that inside left position and he does a little turn, beats 2 players and starts weaving into that sort of that number 10 area, it looks great. But I think Calafiori sometimes looks at that and thinks, no, the percentages ain't right. I'm a defender first. I'm not going to take that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's keeping him in the team, and that's another thing that relates back to the 90-91 team, was the back 4 and the 2 central midfield players looked after the defence. That's your responsibility, first and foremost. Give the ball to the other 4 players on the pitch, and they will win the game for you. And I think I look at the team now, and I honestly see them doing that, thinking, I don't want the glory. I'm a defender first. You have the ball. You see them come into the midfield, they stop and they come back.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about the defence. They're doing their job.
Yeah. Please be right, David, because I've booked 5 nights in London after the last game against Palace, just in case I've got some serious celebrating to do. But the last home game, it was. I mean, ever since Arteta came, we've watched our fullbacks invert. Like cut into the field. Zinchenko sort of lived there, but it was really strange. Before Calafiori went off in the last game, he was actually like playing like a centre back, and Gabriel was more of a left back at times when they were playing, and that just lines up with what you're saying there about covering each other. I'm just in such a good place with this team. And just before I let Ferg dial back in, because I'm being greedy here, just got to mention Arteta. I understood the problems that Arteta inherited, right? In my perspective, my God, we weren't in a very good place at all. I used to travel to Europe and watch us in the Europa League and getting turned over in the league up north by teams that should never be beating us, And I knew it would be a long time. And from day one to this very day, Mikel Arteta has my full confidence, and I think he's the right man. And I think we are on the verge now. We're nearly there. Does that align with your thoughts, David?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think he's set himself out on a journey, not to be special in the first year, special in the second, or even the third. And I know the process word is like been well overused the last couple of years, but he has stuck to that himself. He's been committed to his beliefs. He's got what he wanted with the board. He's got, like, player wise, he's got representation in the board now where he can have a decent say, and he ain't a manager that's being puppeted by football directors and stuff like that. I don't feel.
Yeah.
He's in a strong position. He's had a gradual improvement over the seasons, culminating, I think, in this great transfer window we've had, which has given us the opportunity and this platform to push for a proper title push this season. However, I still think he's on thin ice if he don't win it. And I think that's football. I think you can only have so many years. And before even him himself says, do you know what? He ain't getting any younger. And he's going to want to have other challenges. And sometimes you've got to recognise whatever job you're in, whatever you're doing, some of them run their course. And this is his opportunity to run his course and finish it on a high. And if he does that, that buys him the next level. He can power up. I think that buys him the next level. But I think if he doesn't, I think it's past as I think it should be past as new for him. And he will leave the legacy of this year's team to someone who can come in and take it on and move forward. A bit like when Arsenal inherited the back
four, George Graham, five,
Graham. He'll come in and inherit. Whoever comes in will inherit such a great side, and they might just be able to tweak one little things and take it to that next place. But
all the building blocks have been done, and we talked about it before the season started, saying our expectation for the season. We're not putting any pressure under Arteta at all, but I do think, allowing for context, that should he fail, there could be questions, but add context to that. If it's like a last-minute winner in the Champions League final, and we've got all the way with a great it's content. We're not some of these accounts that you see on Twitter and the like.
You come up against a goalkeeper like Donnarumma in last season's semi-final, having a game.
He was unbeatable, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to get that though. You're going to get that when you play in them competitions. You're going to come up against one player that's a game changer. It might have been a midfield player. It might have been a forward that you've got to take out of the game.
Yeah, Lionel Messi off his time or whatever. Yeah,
with a goalkeeper, you can't do that though. You can't you can't block a goalkeeper out of the game. So the Donnarumma things that happened last year was he just had the game of his life, and but he's a shot stopper, and he's massive as well.
Yeah.
He does remind me, when I've seen him in goal, the presence that Dave Seaman had. I was only the other day watching the pen. It was against Millwall back in the day, and I didn't realise I scored one. but Dave Seaman made 3 saves that day, and everyone was in the corner. But I would have hated to have been a penalty taker taking it against Dave when he's standing there like that, like massive, nearly touching the posts.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you score past them?
Trev, should we do these questions that we've got lined up? There's about 5 questions in there.
Do you want me to do the first one, Ferg? I've got it here.
Far away.
So it's from Victor Direen. Can you ask David his favourite Arsenal game and the best player you ever played with in an Arsenal jersey?
Favourite Arsenal game would have to be, I'm going to be a bit narcissistic and say one that I thought I had a really good game in. I actually got man of the match for it, and the result was probably the kind of game I'd get a man of the match for. It was a draw against Torino away in the Cup Winners' Cup. But I played against, at the end, the game was set out for me to mark Benito Carbone. He was playing for Torino at the time, and George had tweaked it and made a back 5, and I was a sweeper. And I just had a lovely game. I had loads of the ball. I was spraying it out to the right, spraying it to the left. And then Carbone only came on in the last 20 minutes. And when the game finished, he came up to me and asked me to swap shirts.
Wow.
And I was like, that never happens to me. And I got man of the match for that game. So that game stands out for me. But my all-time best game was against Doncaster Rovers winning the FA Cup, the FA Youth Cup. I still to this day say it was the most fantastic game to be involved in with that group of players. I hadn't won it for 20 years since 1970 when Arsenal done a double, 71. So that one, best players easy, Bergkamp.
No, I agree. Sorry, phone. You just mentioned the 88 Youth Cup winning side. Of course, we all know Alan Miller, Maxi Miller sadly passed away, right? But there's yourself and Kevin Campbell, and the rest of the names. And Stevie Morrow, obviously. The rest of the names in there, from my memory, it never went on to really make the very top level, David.
Well, there's players in that you don't see, like Paul Dickoff was in that squad.
Okay.
But he was a year younger. So because it normally consisted of the older players. A few of the players went on to play for Leighton Orient, for Cambridge. Neil Heaney was involved in that. He went to Southampton. He had quite a decent career, and he's done well for himself. Kwame Ampadu was only a year younger than us, but a bit like me in the cup competition. Some of them have played 4 or 5 games, but just didn't get through to the final. Weren't in the final squad sort of thing of the final. But we was just I tell you what, Pat Rice brought us together. That we was like 15 of his sons. It was like he just treated us all so well, but harshly at times when we needed to. He'd get the stick out and the carrot. He'd use both. But that was just probably the best time of my football career was in that youth team. Yeah. But I was still playing for Arsenal. But it was just it was what made me really. It was parenting. It was life skills. It was everything in that. And we thank Arsenal for that.
We've all got jobs. I've got a job from years ago that I love, and it will always be dear to me because of the people I worked with and the stuff you've done. So I can empathise with that, even though I couldn't kick a ball for toffee. Gary Ward talks about, he asked the question, we all knew and respected Rocky, was at the club. Love hearing about ex-player stories. What was he like? And what was it in your personal experience of him?
I love Rocky. I mean, Rocky, South London boy, bit like myself, and like I said to you earlier, my best mates were the blacks and the Irish. I was always a minority person, always.
I'm in here, Trev.
You're in. Well, okay, you are, folks. Yeah, fine. But so and the foreigners who came to Arsenal. So I always migrated to them. I wasn't a gambler. I weren't a big drinker in the team. So there was little cliques in it that kept together. But I don't know. I forgot the question now. I was just reminiscing so much.
Rocky.
Rocky. So Rocky. So what I loved about Rocky, and I'm just going to sound really bad. I don't really care because I don't play anymore. but me and him used to smoke, and we used to both smoke menthol Moors. I don't know if you remember them.
I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
Them
so
long, skinny things.
yeah, so after a game, like reserve game or that, he'd always go, Ilsey, come and have a Moors with me around the back. And we'd go and he was like a legend, like in the team before I was just in the reserves. Yet there'd be me and him sitting around the back of the coach before we took off, having a little Moors. But he was just such a lovely bloke. He loved his missus. He weren't a player. He wasn't a player off the pitch, like sort of thing. But he liked to dance, and he liked soul music. He was into all of that, and that was right on my street. And South London boy, we had that connection. So that my clique was really with the London boys, and then you had the Northern boys kind of clicked together, and then the Essex boys kind of just loved drinking. And then we'd all come together on a Tuesday night, and we'd all smash it, and just and have a great time together. But Rocky was a diamond, and when he left was just so sad. It was so shockingly quick as well. It was literally, he came into the ground one morning, George got him in his car, sat down in there with him, said, "You're going, mate." And he had no choice. He had absolutely no choice. Couldn't turn the money down. The money that club got for him was great at that time. But you could see him in the car sobbing. He didn't want to leave. He didn't want to leave.
That's horrendous. That is horrendous. But I've got to lift it a little bit now. You mentioned cup finals, and we mentioned Steve Morrow and Tony Adams. Did Stevie Morrow ever forgive Tony Adams for dropping him in '93, David?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure it's made Stevie, no disrespect to him, but it's made him a lot more famous than he would have been. And I don't mean that. I don't mean, yeah, he did get, but so, Andy Linnigan, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course he did, yeah.
So, you could, but no one remembers Andy. he's just a plumber now in Hertfordshire. But yeah, it's kind of weird. It's yeah, you got to be in that place. We played Tottenham in the semi when did we play him? We played Tottenham, I think in a semi, I played. And Tony dropped me at the end of the game.
Oh.
Doing exactly the same thing. I jumped on him and he dropped me.
Lucky he weren't a goalkeeper then. He would have got
I just had better guns than Stevie Morrow, though. His arms couldn't hold him up. He had little stick things. But yeah, no, it was, I mean, Stevie's brilliant. He's done brilliant work for the club as well. He's gone on to, make a great career in football, and he's very intelligent. And he was really a central defender, Stevie. You've got to remember that. And he just, that defensive midfield role came up, and it was just, you had to go in there and do a job. And but Stevie, I'm sure he's forgiven him, mate. I think he's probably earned a few quid, had a few golf days on the back of that.
After their speeches and everything else. Yeah, before we go, I suppose we should go around and talk about just give it a brief one-liner on what we're expecting Fulham away. Dale, I'll go to you first on Fulham away, and then we'll do Prague. So what Fulham away is a place that we didn't get any points last season, and we've struggled the last couple of seasons there. What are you expecting?
We've also struggled at home the last couple of seasons against West Ham, but we didn't this year. It's a completely different season, mate. I don't look back, I look forward. And the reality is that we were talking in the WhatsApp group earlier about our next 6 fixtures. I expect 6 wins, truth be told. But I do think Fulham away will be probably one of the toughest out of those games there. So Fulham away is never an easy place to go. I'm not saying that's the case, but this is a very different Arsenal to previous years. So looking back on how we've been there previously doesn't really impact my decision. I expect to win, truth be told. I don't think it'll be easy. But going back to the good old days, we spoke about it before, I'm going to predict a nice 1-0 to the Arsenal in this one.
Okay, Danny's gone 3-0. Trevor, your expectations against Fulham? They didn't do much in the transfer window.
Look, mate, much like Dale, last season we went there full of expectation of a win. Saka scores early, we go 1-0 up, and we're all in the stands planning a party in Fulham and Chelsea after the game, and then it goes and turns around and we get beat. But I don't think we're that same team now. I don't think we're that same team. I think we've got much more about us. Dale was exactly right to compare it to the West Ham game last season, because we've turned that around. I'm comfortable that we're going to turn it around and beat Fulham this weekend, but then I would be unbiased. I'm an Arsenal fan,
Absolutely. David, what's your thoughts on Fulham, and then give us a brief one on Prague as well?
Well, I think Fulham haven't started the season as well as they finished it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they was looking for Europe, and they was in a really good position at the end of last season. Just had a couple of poor results, and I think I got to give props to Alex Iwobi, because I think he's been probably outstanding for the last 4 or 5 months of last season. And he still looked pretty good in these first games they've had. They've only had 2 wins. They beat Leeds and Bournemouth, I think, or is it Leeds? And they've had 2 wins in the league. But if you look at their stats, 24 shots since the start of the season, 7 games. I mean,
it's not a lot.
And then so I'm fully expecting. I think the team have moved past banana skins now. I really think the team have moved past banana skins, because when you've got that bench and you've got that depth in the side, the pressure's not on the 11 that start as well. There's players that out there can just go and have an 80% game and know that it's not happening for me. We'll bring Martinelli on and bang, things are going to change. So I think it's going to be a comfortable win. Dale, I think probably 2 or 3, if I'm honest.
I hope you're right, mate. I hope you're right. I'd take that all day long.
Yeah,
I really would.
I really do think that. And then looking at Prague, I think they're pretty much the same. They're games I'm going to be covering as well for Arsenal. So I've done a little bit of work on them. And I mean, Prague as well, just really poor return on their XG. One shot on target against Inter in the loss. And then, they get a draw against Bodo Glimt. If that's how you say it, I'm not sure on the pronunciation. I've not checked my.
You got it right. You got it right.
So yeah, I think it should be pretty much a given. Looking at those fixtures, I'll be more worried about playing Crystal Palace. I think that's going to be the toughest one out that bunch.
I think Burnley away, because Burnley against Liverpool, who I don't think are as good as the media think they are, but I think Burnley are so solid defensively.
Burnley's going to be a low block. We know that, but they won't be able to cope. And as much as I like Scotty Parker, I just think, do you know what? You look at your team, and the first thing that you do when you look at teams that win the league is look at the managers and how powerful and strong they are and dedicated and know what they're doing. And I just think Scotty Parker is just fishing around for a formula to try and make it work at Burnley, to try and keep yourself not in a job, but he is, every year's a reassessment for you when you're playing against, when you're managing teams like that. You're going to be looked at all the time. So I think, Brighton's not going to be an easy game, depending on what side we put out in that competition. So, but again, bonus of having great bench now. When we play the Carabao Cup, we're not sticking out a load of youngsters, and we go and win it. Go and win the Carabao. Go and win the FA Cup. Go and win the league, and go and win the Champions League. That's got to be the target.
Yes, absolutely,
it's got to be. Yeah. We've got a squad big enough to cope with it now. Let's just try and stay away from injuries, which is that's in the hands of the gods sometimes. But we can cover all four competitions this year. I'm positive of that.
It just depends on if Arteta concentrates on them as well, because I do sometimes feel, especially the League Cup, you have to put it lower down on your go on, Trev.
No. I'm sort of agreeing with you, but what I'm saying is he hasn't got to do that anymore, because he's got the depth. Yeah. He's got the depth to put quality teams out in the Carabao Cup and still not worry about who he's going to put out in the weekend in the Premier League, mate. So I'm sort of agreeing with you, but I'm just saying I don't think he's got to do that anymore.
Okay.
He's got enough players. As for Prague, I had a little look at the odds the other day, and we are massively odds on to go and win in Prague. And this new league format, we've won our first 2. Get a win and win our first 3, and the next 2 games are nowhere near as easy, are they? We've got Bayern, and who else have we got after?
We got Atletico and Bayern. They're the 2.
It gets a lot more difficult, So it'd be lovely to have them first 3 wins. I'll be out in Prague. Do you do the commentary from London or out in Prague, David?
We do. The club outsources it to a independent production company over in Enfield. So all the away games we do from Enfield, but all the home games we still do the commentary, obviously from the Emirates. But yeah, I see it as two more wins, and then looking at the rest of the games in Europe, I reckon we're pretty much guaranteed one of those top 8 spots.
Top 4 is the key, though, because then it means you get a home game second, ideally.
I just think once you get through that first round, you've got 4 games left till you're in a final.
Yeah,
you're gonna come up against the champions, whether it's in the first game and then 4 or the last. So and that was George's attitude. You know, we might play. We could easily have played the team in our league group that we then played in the final of a European competition. So just beat them all the way through, and you know you're going to have to beat the best to win it.
Absolutely. Listen, we've had an hour and 15 minutes of really good content. I've really enjoyed chatting to you, David. It's been good hearing some of the stories. It's been good hearing your knowledge as well, and your understanding from being a football player. For us as fans, might be a bit fanatical fans, but as fans, it's really interesting to hear. We've got 562 people watching. If you want, follow that QR code, and you can follow the rest of our content on YouTube. We'd love you to go over there and do that. One thing that we mention every episode, especially with this weekend, it was October the 10th, I believe, which was World Mental Health Day. We've chosen not to pair up, but to support Andy's man club, and it's okay to talk. We say it every week in every show, Trevor, that if you're struggling, reach out.
Yeah, it's a simple message, but it's the strongest message. You know, when you're on a low, when you're in a bad place, the hardest thing to do can be to discuss your issues with other people, but there's no doubt it helps, and it's the best thing to do. And once you do it once, you make that first contact, it becomes a process that you're involved with, and it helps. So get in touch with Andy's man card, get in touch with Guns and Ribbons, get in touch with anybody. You know, we see too many people take, what is a permanent solution to a short-term problem, and we need to do our bit to help
that. Dale, thank you very much for your time. Before I press the button, did you have anything to add?
No, just a big thank you to David. Like I say, hearing things from a former player's point of view, in particular the Eze Odegaard comparison, and again, it's something I don't think we'd thought of as fans. So it's really, really good to get your insights on that. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Right, I'll be back in a second. I'm just going to press this button because we all love this song. David, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. As I said, it's been great to get the insight, as Dale mentioned about the Eze Odegaard thing, but just generally, it's good to see, that footballers aren't these just these people who drive around in Lamborghinis painted gold. They are normal people as well. So it's really nice to get to know the real person. Thank you,
David.
very much.
In case you're wondering, I think that was a compliment, mate. I'm not.
I think
it's a long-winded way about going around it.
Footballers just love football. What I will say is, though, I'm not going to be here for a week. I'm off to South Africa in the morning, and I just want to say to all your followers, my daughter is running the Cape Town Marathon on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
So we're going out there. It's her 30th birthday present. That's what she wanted. She's a competitive CrossFitter. So if anyone wants to give her a follow, she has got a GoFundMe page. She's doing she's raising money for water aid. She works for Welsh Water, and she's trying to raise money to put wells and pumps out in African dry areas, if you like. So if you don't mind,
yeah, far away.
She's Amy_Hill, HIL 95 on Instagram. Check her page out. I know it's a little bit of unfair advertising on your little site, but
no, we love it.
No, it's not advertising; it's a good cause.
Give her a follow. She's trying to raise £1,000. She's up to 500 quid at the moment. Anything would be appreciated. We go tomorrow, as I said. Daddy-daughter holiday, and I'm going to drink beer while she runs 26.2 miles.
That seems a fair balance.
Good luck, Amy. Yeah. I've done it all before. I've done all them miles. I've done 1 mile.
I'm thinking of birth.
David,
good luck,
all
Amy.
the best to your daughter. I'm just going to cut Ferg off because I know he's going to shut the show. I'll put that out there on all our social media, mate, straight after the show.
Nice one. Thank you.
And before Dale and Ferg shut the show, I just want to say, and I say this to all Arsenal players, and I say it with all integrity, just thank you, mate. Thank you for the memories. You've made me smile often, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for shouting from the stands. Whatever you were shouting, I don't mind.
You wouldn't understand a word I say anyway, but oh, you might because you like the Irish, so that's okay. So
yeah, I said I like them. I didn't understand them.
Right, you have been watching Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Make sure you go and check out Amy's Instagram page. Give her a £5, give her a £10, give her a 50 quid, whatever it is. Just help her along the way. We are an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans with Arsenal players. It's absolutely been a brilliant show. Tune in next Friday for the preview and next Monday for another one of these. Up the Arsenal, Fox Spurs.
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.